FPL GameWeek 28 meta movement. My name is Benji, and in this one, I've got another sleeper pick ready to go straight into your teams. That's one player every single week, under 10% ownership, and this next bowler is a serious differential, playing for a top 4 team this season. I'm also going to be diving into the current defender meta. Who should you be eyeing up? Who should you be targeting? Who should you be selling in your backline? Let's find out. Thinking Cap activated. If you've been watching the Prem for a while, you won't be unfamiliar with this week's sleeper selection in the form of Nottingham Forest left-back Nico Williams. He signed for Forest back in 2022, and he hasn't been a nailed pick all season, as Nuno Santos did opt for Alex Moreno in a few matches earlier in the campaign. However, Nico started the last 13 of Nottingham Forest's most recent league games, playing 90 minutes in 11 of those 13, so it's pretty safe to say he's nailed down that starting spot. Why is he such an appealing pick? Well, Forest have kept the second most clean sheets in the league behind Liverpool and are comfortably a top 4 defense this season, which is why Ola Aina, Sells, and Milenkovic have rocketed in price this year. Nico is the cheapest entrance into that Forest defense, as he's priced at just 4.4 million. His ownership is currently sitting just under 3%, which is insanely low for a Forest defender in the current power curve. So he's a differential, he's nailed, playing for a very, very productive back line, and I was actually kind of alerted to Nico after I saw a few of my boys, shout out FPL Cayman, stock from the round table. Those boys, I saw a few of them pick up Nico Williams a few weeks back, and I did a little bit of digging after that into his data points, his underlyings this season. I was very, very impressed with what I found. In particular, his shot volume. Nico ranks 3rd across all defenders in shot attempts per 90, and he ranks 7th in shots on target taken per 90. Shot volume isn't a new concept here on Thinking Cap, and I absolutely love players who are high volume shooters. Even though that doesn't always translate into FPL points, it's still a quality I value highly, and the fact that a 4.4 mil Nico Williams gets you a very, very decent goal threat, as well as the cheapest possible access into that Forest defense, well, it's becoming pretty obvious why I'm raving on about him ahead of Game Week 28. Only Trent and Pedro Porro are averaging more shots per 90 than Nico Williams. It's just crazy value in the current power curve. I would be strongly considering him. He's much cheaper compared to Milenkovic, Ola Aina, and he's much more attacking than Murillo as well. After the Man City fixture, Forest's run of games are actually really good, including 2 promoted team fixtures from 30 to the final game of the season. And one of those promoted team fixtures does land in blank Game Week 29. That's quite helpful if you aren't free hitting next week and you need a defender like me. That's why I'm looking at him. In terms of entry point, I do prefer moving to Nico next week rather than going there for the City fixture, but after Ipswich, the run is still pretty sweet. Forest fixtures at home include Man United in 30, then they have Everton, Brentford, then Leicester, and finally Chelsea in Game Week 38. Away fixtures are decent as well. And with how productive Nuno's defense has been this year in terms of racking those clean sheets, I think Nico Williams is a top transfer target and should be for you as well. So I got a few comments on last week's vid asking about the current defender meta, and that's what we're going to discuss right now. Players are categorized by price brackets, with defenders at the top of the bracket ranking higher in the power curve, and those ranked lower in their price brackets have a shorter lifespan in the current power curve. I want to caveat that the defender meta is different for each manager, all dependent on chip strategy, and in particular what you want to do in blank Game Week 29. If you're free hitting in 29, your defensive targets should be different compared to other managers like me who aren't free hitting in 29. So be sure to make your moves in relation to your plans for 29. For those of you who are activating that chip in 29, I see 2 clear priority buys, and those would be Lewis Hall and Daniel Munoz, both sitting around the 5 million price point. Why? Well, Newcastle and Crystal Palace already have one confirmed double game week this season, which is 100% confirmed to happen in Game Week 32. Newcastle and Palace are doubling in 32, locked. And on top of that, Newcastle as well as Palace are both still in the FA Cup, which means they could double twice this season. And if you take a look at both players' seasonal output, well, it's been very, very, very productive. Hall's done 15 defender returns, Munoz is on 16, and both of these guys are confirmed doubling with potential to have yet another double on top of that. Really attacking fullbacks, decent price point, and if you're free hitting, you skip out on Lewis Hall and Munoz's blank in 29, then you get them for the surrounding fixtures before and after in 28. So this week, Hall and Munoz have good fixtures. In 30, both of them have good fixtures again. So you're optimizing the weeks around the blank, you're optimizing your defense long-term for the double because you're getting doublers in now, and you're maximizing that free hit to its full potential. For those of you who aren't planning to free hit in 29, if you take a look at the two cheaper price categories, you'll see the Nottingham Forest defenders at the very top of the meta. Like I said before, they're almost out of their quote-unquote bad fixture patch, just City at home to go, and then it's a lovely run until 38. We don't really know what the future doubles are going to be apart from the confirmed Newcastle Palace one in 32, but Forest are still in the FA Cup. They have Ipswich this round, and for me, if you aren't planning to free hit, you should be targeting teams playing in 29 who could also double later on, because getting on them now in the near future means you're getting better buying prices. You're potentially delaying your wildcard if, let's say you bring in a Nico Williams and Forest do get the double. Well, the more Forest that you do bring in, the more flexible your team becomes. Maybe you can even push that wildcard back till 35, which is absolutely insane because there could be a blank in 37, could be a double in 36. We don't know all the information, and we won't know. Even in a few weeks, we're not going to know. So by keeping your team flexible, being able to react with your squad to new information, it's crucial at this time of the season. So yeah, I'm really, really hot on the Forest defense. Entry point definitely 29, because I know they can clean against City. It's still a tougher fixture in my eyes. We just discussed Williams, but Milenkovic is another decent option. He's the regular target from dead ball situations for Nottingham Forest. Probably a touch more nailed long-term than Nico, but Nico is just so much cheaper, and I think the risk of him getting benched is quite low. So definitely go for Nico if you're looking at Forest. Other options for no free hit 29 strat include Dean Howson and Kirkes from Bournemouth, but Ryan Christie midfielder is out injured, and first choice center back Zabani, who partners Huijsen, was sent off, I think it was a week and a half ago. He won't be available until after Spurs. So I've given these Bournemouth defenders a little drop in the meta, but from next game week, they'll have Zabani back, and the entry point looks better next week than it does this week. If you went there in 28, so if you went there this week, you'd be hopping on for the Tottenham game. That's not a green fixture for any defender in the current economy. Brentford at home in 29 looks much, much better, and Bournemouth do have quite a strong chance to double later on. They got great fixtures post 30, so I don't mind Huijsen or Kirkes if you need to go there. For example, maybe you've already got a piece of that Forest backline. In that case, I'd be looking to buy a Bournemouth defender next game week when Zabani returns. We spoke about Ryan Aït-Nouri last week on Meta Moves. He was my 27 sleeper selection, and look, I think he's great. Wolves fixtures are really nice right now in the medium term, but Wolves have just been knocked out of the FA Cup by Bournemouth, funnily enough. And critical factor, Matheus Cunha was sent off for violent conduct. Because it's his second red card of the season, he's going to miss 4 games from game week 28 to 31. He'll be unavailable, which does sour the appeal for Wolves' investment as a whole. I'd probably avoid Aït-Nouri now just because Williams, better defense, a little bit cheaper, Milenkovic, better long-term pickup, but Aït-Nouri is just so fun to watch as an FPL asset, super attacking, and Wolves do have quite a few good fixtures, and without Cunha, that goal involvement could be a little bit more spread, but unfortunately, his lifespan is just too short in the meta to go above those Forest guys. Now, let's talk about the Liverpool defenders, because although they have some pretty good games post 30, they're unlikely to double later this season. Still, they have the second best defense statistically in the league, and maybe even the best defense from a clean sheet perspective, but managers not using free hit, they are a problem because Liverpool don't play in 29. They aren't projected to double later, and so if you're not free hitting in 29, it doesn't really make sense to keep them and sacrifice for a Trent, sacrifice for a Konate, and that's why I'm looking to sell Trent pretty soon. I've been really happy with Trent, to be honest. He's been averaging 5 points per start this season. That is fantastic output. His points average is higher than the likes of Bruno Fernandes, higher than the likes of Jean-Philippe Mateta, Son, Anthony Gordon. So Trent is really delivering at his price point, and for now, for this game week, he doesn't get a movement drop. However, next game week, I do think he might get a drop, and it's probably a good exit point to sell. Liverpool almost have that league wrapped up, which means Champions League at some point will become the focus for Arne Slot, and without future doubles in sight, they do become less significant, those Liverpool defenders. On free hit 29, I'd probably consider keeping one if you're doubled up. You probably could even keep a Trent if you want to, because the fixtures post 30 aren't actually that bad. Everton, West Ham's in there, Leicester's in there. So if you want to, you can just keep them free at 29. Don't worry about them blanking. Then you get Trent back from 30 for that patch, and you can decide whether you want to sell him later. And I think that is probably a little bit of a safer strategy for rank maintenance. So yeah, Trent, really good option, performing really well in the current power curve. But if you don't plan to activate your free hit, then I'd be looking to exit into a Forest defender, or you could go for a more expensive option in the form of Josko Gvardiol. I've placed him in the more expensive price bracket, even though he's priced at 5.9 mil, because I do see him in the Gabriel Van Dijk tier, or at least price bracket. That's where I'm placing him. He's racked up 5 goals this season, and with the emergence of Marmoush, I've noticed that Pep seemed to give him a little bit more attacking license to overlap, where Marmoush kind of comes inside off the left, and Josko gets even more license from Pep to really overlap down the left and get forward. But obviously that's based off what 1-2 games that we've seen. Pep loves to tinker change, so we know historically, at least with Gvardiol, he's an output demon. Last season he performed extremely well in terms of GA. Since he's joined City, he's been picking up really dangerous position. He's scored goals, he's been a big goal threat, he's a threat from set pieces with his header. He's good from open play, and he's got the screamer outside of the box in his locker too. So I'm really hot on Gvardiol, especially because City are likely to double, and they have decent fixtures coming up. So Gvardiol is someone I'm really strongly considering. Honestly, I think it's between him and Nico Williams for me. Just depends how I move the money in other places for who I pick, basically. But yeah, I'm very hot on Gvardiol. Moving into the Arsenal defense, who continue to produce decent cleans this season, and they also could double if Crystal Palace make it far in the FA Cup. Of course, Gabriel is the one to go for if that happens. I know he hasn't scored many set-piece headers recently, but he's the consistent target for the world's best set-piece team. So if Arsenal do double, he'll continue to retain his place at the very top of the meta in that price bracket. Behind him, I actually do prefer Jurrien Timber over Saliba, just because you're saving a little bit of bread there. You're getting a little bit more attacking threat. But I should mention Ben White is fit now, which is a threat to Timber's medium-term minutes. So neither Saliba or Timber I'm really that hot on, but if you really wanted that second playing outfield defender, I would look at Jurrien Timber. That's a move that you would only do if Arsenal double falls. I wouldn't be moving there early. I wouldn't be moving there in the near future in the next 2 weeks. I would kind of just start to assess Arsenal, hold the assets you've got from Arsenal, but don't invest too heavily on that Arteta outfit. Just quickly on Anthony Robinson. Look, Fulham don't have the most amazing fixtures coming up. Their run post 30 includes Arsenal, Liverpool, and Bournemouth away, but Spurs at home is a decent game, especially with Ange back in European knockout competition. So Spurs could be a little bit leggy coming into that 29 game week. Despite Fulham's impressive defensive numbers, Robinson's only managed 4 clean sheets this year, which is the least on my meta movement graph. If you own Fulham defenders, I would keep them till the blank in 29. If you're on a no free hit 29 strategy, I'd keep them and then sell them after. But if you're on free hit 29, I'd look to move the likes of a Robinson, a Castagne, a Joachim Andersen out as soon as possible. If you've enjoyed this one, then drop a like on the video. If you like what you see and you want to stick around, hit subscribe. I'll speak to you in the next one. Peace.